U.S. President Donald Trump heralds more tariff plans in spring, this time a 25% tariff on cars and similar duties on chips and pharmaceuticals going into the American market. U.S. and Russian officials agree to appoint high-level teams for a peace deal in Ukraine amid a protest from Kyiv for its absence. The nation's rival political parties and the government are set to meet tomorrow for joint talks, where an uphill battle is expected over a supplementary budget. It's February 19th, 8 p.m. in Seoul. This is Newscenter. Thank you for joining us. I'm Yoon Jung-min. We start over in the U.S., where President Trump has floated the idea of a 25% tariff, as expected, on cars and chips entering the American market. Lee Seung-jae has the latest.
In his first month back in the Oval Office, U.S. President Donald Trump has been focused on taxing imports coming into the United States, citing unfair trade. During a press conference at Mar-a-Lago in Florida on Tuesday, he was asked about the specifics of automobile tariffs that he had hinted at earlier.
Yeah, I probably will tell you that on April 2nd, but it'll be in the neighborhood of 25%.
Trump also said that it's likely that he will announce a 25% tariff on chips and pharmaceuticals coming into the United States. However, with pharmaceuticals, he hinted that while it may be initially 25% or higher, it will go up significantly over the course of a year. Due to the massive tariffs that Trump plans on imposing, the U.S. leader said that major car and chip companies have already approached his administration, hinting that new plants are now likely to be built in the United States.
I do want to say while I'm up here, I've been contacted by some of the biggest companies in the world, and because of what we're doing economically and through tariffs and taxes and incentives, they want to come back into the United States. And we'll be announcing various very large companies, the biggest actually, and they'll be coming back, having to do with chips and having to do also with cars and lots of other things. We're going to be.
Meanwhile, President Trump has commented on the North Korean troops who have fought alongside the Russian military in the Kursk region for the first time since taking office. According to Trump, many North Koreans have been killed fighting in the war. The comments also come as his administration is holding talks with Russian officials to discuss a plan to end the war in Ukraine. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
In Saudi Arabia back on Tuesday, talks between the top diplomats of the U.S. and Russia yielded consensus for setting up a separate team to discuss ending the war in Ukraine. Our foreign affairs correspondent Bae Eun-jae reports.
Top diplomats of the United States and Russia held talks in Saudi Arabia on Tuesday, marking their first formal meeting aimed at ending the Ukraine war since it began 3 years ago. Following the meeting that lasted around 4.5 hours, U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio told reporters that he's convinced Russia is willing to engage in a serious process of ending the conflict, and said this was the first step of a long and difficult journey.
In order to bring an end to any conflict, there has to be concessions made by all sides.
Rubio's Russian counterpart described the conversation as useful, but said his country will not accept NATO troops in Ukraine as part of any peace deal.
We explained today that the presence of troops from NATO countries under a foreign flag, under the flag of the European Union, or under national flags, it does not change anything. This is, of course, unacceptable to us.
The two countries said they agreed to hold more talks and added they will appoint high-level teams to begin working on a path to ending the war as soon as possible. Following the talks, Rubio held phone calls with his counterparts from the UK, France, Germany, and Italy in an apparent move to reassure the European countries over concerns that they may have no place in the peace negotiations. Meanwhile, as Ukraine was not invited to Tuesday's peace talks, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said negotiations to end the war in Ukraine should not take place behind the backs of the parties involved.
You can talk about anything, but no decision can be made without Ukraine on how to end the war in Ukraine. We were not invited to this meeting, the U.S.-Russia meeting in Saudi Arabia, It was a surprise for us, as well as for many.
In response, U.S. President Donald Trump dismissed Kyiv's concern about being left out and almost suggested that Ukraine was to blame for a war that began only after Russia's invasion.
But today I heard, oh, well, we weren't invited. Well, you've been there for 3 years. You should have ended it 3 years. You should have never started it. You could have made a deal.
Trump also hinted that he may meet Russian President Vladimir Putin very soon. As he walked out of the press conference in Mar-a-Lago, he answered probably when asked if he still expected to meet Putin before the end of this month. 배은지, Arirang News.
South Korea is committed to providing the necessary protection and support for North Korean soldiers captured as prisoners of war in Ukraine who decide to come to this country. That's according to the Foreign Ministry on Wednesday, following a local media interview with a North Korean soldier captured in Ukraine, who recently stated that he wished to go to South Korea instead of returning to the North. The ministry noted that North Korean military personnel are considered, quote, our citizens under the Constitution, and that no individual should be repatriated to a place where they may face persecution against their will. It said it has already conveyed such intention to Ukraine and will continue necessary consultations. Lawmakers across the aisle are pulls apart over details of a supplementary budget ahead of a crucial meeting tomorrow. Our correspondent Lee Si-hoo covers the contention.
On Wednesday, the day before the much-anticipated first meeting of the joint consultative body between the government and bipartisan leaders at the National Assembly, the main opposition Democratic Party continued to urge prompt processing of the supplementary budget. Party Chairman Lee Jae-myung, who has insisted on a nationwide spending voucher for all citizens to revive the economy, even hinted that he was willing to forego such an objective if it leads to the approval of the budget.
If the consumption voucher is absolutely impossible and they just really can't do it, why not spend money on job creation and support for business startups? I hope we can discuss this together at the joint talks on state affairs.
The DP has proposed an additional budget of 35 trillion Korean won, or roughly $24.3 billion US. While the ruling People Power Party agrees with the need for an additional financing to boost the economy, it argues the DP must first restore the money it cut in the first place. The PPP insists on what it calls a tweezers budget that would selectively support the most crucial areas in need. This way, the party says they can assure fiscal soundness.
The PPP's rule for the supplementary budget is to spend on the most urgent areas, somewhat like picking them out with a pair of tweezers. Our first priorities are measures for the self-employed and small business owners who are directly affected by the stagnant economy.
Kwon said the ruling party is open to negotiations as long as the main opposition apologizes first on cutting, quote, key budgets for the next generation. Meanwhile, the joint talks between the government and the assembly, slated for Thursday, were originally scheduled for earlier this month, but were postponed due to disagreements on the specifics of the agenda. At the upcoming meeting, Acting President Choi Sang-mok, National Assembly Speaker Woo Won-sik, and the leaders from the rival parties are expected to discuss not only the budget, but other key pending issues, such as measures to support the domestic semiconductor industry and improve the national pension system. Lee Si-hoo, Arirang News.
A host of measures has been unveiled to bolster regional construction by expanding related development projects, as struggles in the sector have become a cause of concern. Park Go-nu has more.
At an economic policy meeting held in Seoul on Wednesday, the government unveiled plans to boost the local economy, especially in the struggling construction field.
We're facing downward pressure due to a delayed recovery in domestic demand and rising external uncertainties. The construction sector, hit by fewer orders, is seeing sluggish investment and employment, delaying any regional recovery. The government will boost support for the sector in its first quarter spending plan.
This comes after the Bank of Korea predicted another decrease in construction investment this year, following a decline last year. Among the plans the government put forward are underground railway projects worth around $3 billion in the cities of Busan, Daejeon, and Ansan. These cities were chosen as their local governments have already completed discussions regarding the project areas and cost sharing with the central government. The projects involve either putting elevated railways running through the city center underground or covering them with deck structures while developing the surrounding land for residential and commercial facilities. The government also plans for the state-owned Korea Land and Housing Corporation to buy around 3,000 unsold apartments in areas outside the capital region. This follows an increase in the number of unsold houses in regional areas at the end of last year that nearly doubled compared to 2023. On Wednesday, the government hinted at the possibility of even increasing the number of purchases depending on market conditions. Additionally, new strategic projects exempt from Greenbelt Zone restrictions will be announced next week to enable more flexible land development. Park Gun-woo, Arirang News.
The Constitutional Court will deliberate on Prime Minister Han Duck-soo's impeachment case after deciding to conclude the trial in 90 minutes at the first hearing on Wednesday. The hearing was held 54 days after the opposition-led National Assembly voted to remove him from office, as Han, who was also acting president at the time, held back on approving new Constitutional Court justices until a bipartisan agreement was reached. Addressing the 8-member bench, Han said the decision was consistent with the country's constitutional tradition, in which judicial nominations are always decided through bipartisan agreements. Han also denied allegations that he had enabled martial law and said he vetoed contentious bills railroaded through by the opposition-led parliaments, as they included unconstitutional clauses. To this, the National Assembly's impeachment panel co-chair Chung Chung-nae insisted Han had disrupted the nation by not appointing 3 justices as the opposition wanted. Separately, the court also held a hearing for a dispute case filed by the ruling People Power Party, as it clashed with the opposition over the required number of votes to impeach Han. Tomorrow will be the final day of impeachment trial hearings at the Constitutional Courts before the verdict on President Yoon. Our political correspondent Kim Do-yeon is here in the studio on what the public thinks and what this could mean. Do-yeon, first, walk us through the polling done on this issue.
Jung-in, as you said, the impeachment trial at the Constitutional Court will wrap up soon, and the decision will be coming out within the next few weeks. Now, the Constitutional Court does not, by any means, have an obligation to listen to the public opinion, but the public still has its own. Let's look at the latest data. Gallup Korea's poll of 1,004 people from February 11th to 13th showed that while 57% of the respondents were in favor of Yoon's impeachment, 38% weren't. This is an increase if you look at the numbers before this, although it is moving slowly. Meanwhile, the far-right number shows the post just a week after the declaration of martial law, when 75% wanted impeachment, while 21% were against it. So there has been an apparent rise in the number of those against Yoon's impeachment as the trial progressed.
Would you break down the numbers? What has changed since the declaration that people seem to have changed their minds?
Right, there could be a number of factors, but first and foremost, this is what we need to consider. The impeachment trial at the Constitutional Court is solely based on the Constitution and the legality of the declaration of martial law. However, that's not something the average citizen can make their own opinion about, and so other factors will influence their answer. In fact, looking at just the latest data, when those against impeachment were asked the reason for their response, the number one was because they didn't like what the opposition was doing. So when the polling was done on the 11th through the 13th, Yoon had already made 6 appearances at the Constitutional Court, possibly using this as a means to communicate with the public. And of course, he made a series of accusations against the main opposition Democratic Party of Korea, stating it was making it hard for him and his government to function. This includes the series of impeachment motions passed by the opposition party's lawmakers in their attempts to put the brakes on the administration's governance. On the other hand, the number one reason for those in favor of impeachment was that the declaration of martial law was unacceptable. But all in all, is 38% a significant number in this case? An expert says not really.
The more important thing is that still well over 50% agree on impeaching the president. To clarify, if there are nearly 60% of people in favor of impeachment, it's okay to certainly think the majority of the nation want the impeachment.
But does this mean anything to the judges at the court?
Right. To put it simply, it shouldn't. The Constitutional Court justices will only look at what's written in the books. However, there is something to consider. If there are different opinions on a case, the public will watch closely, and there will be some who are not happy at the end. As this will be the case, then the Constitutional Court will have the burden to be extremely thorough and fair so that when the decision comes out, the public accepts it. And right now, the nation has been ideologically split in half. For example, when former impeached President Park Geun-hye was being tried at the Constitutional Court back when she was being tried, the last poll before the ruling was made only around 20% against impeachment. And the bench unilaterally approved the impeachment. Now, there could be a split decision at the court, and whatever the result is, either side supporters could show discontent with the trial process for this one, especially for those in support of President Yoon. As the numbers slowly rise, the court wants to be extra mindful. Take a listen to an expert on this side.
They know that the public's keen interest is on this case, and they are watching the every move of the Constitutional Court very closely. So I think that, like I said, they'll be bending over backwards, either in allowing more deliberations or selecting of the witnesses, even though they might not think it is necessary.
All in all, while there are polarized political views, it will be important for the nation to accept the decision of the Constitutional Court, avoid further chaos.
All right, our political correspondent Kim Do-yeon, thank you.
Thank you.
K-pop boy bands remain popular all around the world. According to the International Federation of the Phonographic Industry on Wednesday, 17 was ranked third in its Global Artist Chart 2024, following Taylor Swift and Drake. Stray Kids and ENHYPEN were 5th and 14th respectively. The industry publishes its global artist ranking based on sales across streaming, downloads, and physical albums, and shows each year's recorded music industry trends. Korea's ramyeon has been garnering quite a big following on the global stage, with a growing number of travelers to the country starting their travel agenda with a trip to popular ramyeon hotspots. Lee Eun-hee takes a look.
Visitors from around the world have flocked to this unique spot, a 24-hour self-service ramyeon, or South Korean instant noodles shop, located in the heart of Seoul, Jongno-gu district. This ramen shop offers foreign visitors over 60 varieties of instant noodles to enjoy anytime, with options for all tastes, including mild, spicy, vegan, and halal. Cooking methods and safety guidelines are available in multiple languages, ensuring easy access for everyone. The preparation methods vary for different types of ramyeon, with special halal-only options also provided.
We often see tourists coming straight from the airport. Since unmanned stores are not common in many countries, people are usually surprised by our setup. Many also ask if the payment system works properly.
Another unique ramen spot is Noguri's Ramen Shop, which opened in January and serves ramen made by Nongshim, one of South Korea's leading food companies. A second store opened at the Hyundai outlet Dongdaemun, located in central Seoul, following the success of the first store, which sold an average of 12,000 bowls per month between September and November last year.
I came here because I had this ramyeon in Japan before. The soup was smooth and very delicious.
It was attractive that I could choose and eat ramyeon freely, and the ramyeon I ate was also very delicious.
The ramen store's owner says that some milder flavored products, which don't sell well in South Korea, are popular among Japanese and American customers.
We've tailored our selection to include the most popular products. Additionally, we have Muslim customers who often seek vegan options, so we've made sure to include those as well.
According to the Korean Food Ministry, ramen exports reached a record of over $1 billion, or around 1.5 trillion Korean won, by October 2024, marking a 30% increase from 2023.
Before heading back to Japan today, I stopped by because it looked interesting. Seeing this ramyeon, which isn't available in Japan, made me wish I could have it there too.
As Korean ramen gains popularity, visiting self-service ramen shops to cook and enjoy instant noodles on the spot has become a must-do activity for foreign visitors to Korea. 이은희, Arirang News.
Currently, cold wave warnings are in effect in Gangwon-do province, and cold wave advisories have also been issued in Gyeonggi-do, Chungcheongbuk-do, and northern parts of Gyeongsangbuk-do provinces. Tomorrow and Friday morning, the temperature will plummet to minus 7 degrees Celsius, and it will hit minus 8 degrees on Saturday in Seoul. In addition to dry weather warnings in place for the East Coast, dry weather advisories have also been issued in Seoul and other inland areas. With strong winds blowing, please take extra precautions not to cause any wildfires. Tomorrow morning will start cold nationwide. Seoul and Gyeongju will start off at minus 7 degrees and Chuncheon at minus 11 degrees. Daytime temperatures will move up to 1 degree in Seoul and 5 degrees in Daegu, Gyeongju, and Jeju. Colder than usual conditions will continue for the time being. That's all for Korea. Here are the weather conditions around the world. And that is Newscenter for tonight. Thanks for watching. A panel session coming up.